They saw land below, green fields and winding rivers, clear as day through the cabin windows. But every instrument on the flight deck screamed the impossible truth. They were still at 30,000 feet, cruising over empty ocean. What the passengers saw should not exist, and what happened next would change everything they believed about reality. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Captain Marcus Webb had been flying commercial jets for 22 years. He had logged over 15,000 hours in the air, crossed every ocean, weathered storms that would terrify most people, and landed planes when visibility dropped to almost nothing. He trusted his instruments the way a surgeon trusts their hands. On this particular Tuesday morning in March, that trust would be tested in ways he could never have imagined. Flight 743 departed Singapore at 6:15 in the morning, bound for Sydney. 238 passengers settled into their seats, most already dozing off or plugging into their entertainment systems. It was supposed to be a routine flight, 7.5 hours of smooth sailing over the vast stretch of ocean between two continents. Marcus ran through his pre-flight checks with his co-pilot, a sharp young woman named Rachel Chen who had joined the airline 3 years earlier. Everything checked out perfectly. Fuel levels optimal, weather reports clear, navigation systems online and synchronized. They pushed back from the gate right on schedule. The first 2 hours passed without incident. The plane climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and leveled off. The morning sun painted the clouds below in shades of pink and gold. Flight attendants moved through the aisles with their beverage carts. In seat 12C, a businessman named David Kumar opened his laptop to finish a presentation. 3 rows back, a young mother named Sarah tried to keep her toddler entertained with coloring books. In first class, an elderly couple celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a special meal the crew had prepared. Everything was perfectly, beautifully normal. Then, at exactly 8:27 in the morning, a passenger in seat 23F pressed the call button. Rachel unbuckled and walked back to see what they needed. The passenger, a middle-aged man with glasses, pointed out the window with a confused expression. Rachel looked and felt her stomach drop. Through the small oval window, she could see land, not just a vague shape on the horizon, but detailed, clearly visible land. Rolling green hills, a river cutting through a valley, even what looked like a small town with buildings and roads. Rachel returned to the cockpit, her face pale. "Marcus, we have a situation," she said quietly. "Passengers are seeing land out the windows." Marcus frowned. "That is impossible," he replied. "We are 2 hours from the Australian coast. There is nothing but ocean below us for another 1,000 miles. Check the navigation." Rachel pulled up their position on the display. According to every system on the plane, they were exactly where they should be, flying over empty sea at 35,000 feet. But when Marcus leaned to look out his own window, his blood ran cold. There it was, unmistakable, undeniable land, stretching out below them in every direction. More call buttons lit up across the cabin. Passengers were noticing now, pulling up their window shades, pointing, taking photos on their phones. The flight attendants tried to stay calm, but Marcus could hear the rising confusion in their voices over the intercom. He grabbed the radio to contact air traffic control. "Sydney Centre, this is Flight 743. We have an unusual situation. We are visually observing landmass below our position, but our instruments show we are still over ocean. Request immediate position verification. There was a long pause before the response came. Flight 743, your transponder shows you on course, on altitude, over open water. There are no land masses within 500 miles of your current coordinates. Please confirm you are not experiencing any technical malfunctions. Marcus and Rachel looked at each other. Every gauge, every screen, every readout showed normal operation. The plane was flying perfectly. The autopilot held them steady. GPS coordinates matched their flight plan exactly. Yet the evidence outside the windows contradicted everything. Marcus made a decision. He was going to descend and see what happened. He informed air traffic control of his intentions, then disengaged the autopilot and began a careful descent. 20,000 feet. 15,000 feet. The land below grew more detailed with every 1,000 feet they dropped. Marcus could now see individual trees, houses, cars moving on roads. It looked like rural countryside, peaceful and ordinary. Rachel kept her eyes locked on the instruments. Altitude, airspeed, heading, all normal. Our position has not changed according to navigation, she said, her voice tight with tension. We should be descending toward ocean, but the radar altimeter is picking up terrain below us. At 10,000 feet, Marcus leveled off. The plane flew over what appeared to be a small farming community. Fields of crops in neat rows. A red barn. A church steeple. A school with a playground. Sarah, the young mother in row 15, held her daughter close and stared out the window in disbelief. This was not possible. They should be over water. David Kumar stopped typing on his laptop and pressed his face against the window. His rational mind struggled to process what his eyes were showing him. The elderly couple in first class held hands tightly, wondering if this was some kind of dream. Then Marcus noticed something that made his skin crawl. There were no people. As they flew lower, skimming over the landscape at 200 miles per hour, he realized the land below was completely empty. Cars sat motionless on roads. Swings in the playground hung perfectly still. Not a single person walked the streets of that small town. It was like flying over a movie set. Everything in place, but no actors to bring it to life. Rachel, do you see anyone down there? Marcus asked. Rachel scanned the ground through binoculars they kept in the cockpit. Negative, she whispered. Not a soul. Marcus climbed back to 15,000 feet, his mind racing. He considered every possible explanation. Mass hallucination. Impossible with this many witnesses. Equipment failure. But how could every passenger and crew member see the same false image? Some kind of atmospheric phenomenon creating a mirage. But mirages do not show this level of detail, and they do not persist for this long. He radioed air traffic control again, his voice strained. Sydney Centre, we have now descended to a visual range of the landmass. It appears to be inhabited terrain, buildings and infrastructure visible, but no people. All passengers and crew are observing this. Our instruments still indicate we are over ocean. We need guidance. The response came from a different voice this time, someone senior. Flight 743, this is Sydney Centre Supervisor. We are showing no deviation in your flight path. We have contacted military radar. They confirm you are over water. There are no reports of any other aircraft or vessels observing anything unusual in your vicinity. Can you please describe exactly what you are seeing? Marcus did his best to put it into words, but how do you describe the impossible? How do you explain that you are in two places at once, that reality itself seems to have split into contradictory versions. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Marcus maintained their altitude and speed, following his flight plan as if nothing was wrong, because according to every instrument that was exactly the case. Nothing was wrong. Yet 238 passengers and 4 crew members could see with their own eyes that something was very, very wrong. Some passengers began to panic. A man in row 30 demanded they land immediately. A woman started crying, convinced they had crossed into some other dimension. The flight attendants did their best to keep everyone calm, but fear spread through the cabin like wildfire. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the land began to fade. Not slowly, not gradually, but in patches. One moment Marcus was looking at a farmhouse. The next moment there was ocean where the farmhouse had been. The effect rippled across the landscape like someone erasing a drawing. Fields disappeared. Roads vanished. The small town blinked out of existence piece by piece. Within 2 minutes, there was nothing below them but endless blue water, exactly as there should have been all along. The instruments had been right. Reality reasserted itself, leaving everyone on board questioning what they had just witnessed. Marcus leveled the plane at 5,000 feet, and engaged the autopilot. His hands were shaking. Rachel sat motionless, staring at the navigation screens as if they had betrayed her. In the cabin, passengers looked at each other with wild eyes, needing confirmation that others had seen it too, that they were not losing their minds. Yes, we all saw it, David Kumar said to the woman across the aisle from him. Sarah held her daughter and wondered how she would ever explain this. The elderly couple sat in stunned silence, holding hands even tighter than before. The rest of the flight to Sydney passed in eerie quiet. No one knew what to say. Marcus filed a detailed report with air traffic control, knowing how insane it would sound. When they landed 3 hours later, they were met by airline officials, aviation safety investigators, and even military personnel. Every passenger was interviewed. Every piece of data from the flight recorders was analyzed. The plane itself was taken out of service for a complete technical inspection. They found nothing wrong, not a single malfunction, not a single error in any system. The plane had performed flawlessly. In the days that followed, the story leaked to the media despite efforts to keep it quiet. News outlets ran wild with speculation. Conspiracy theorists had a field day. Scientists proposed theories ranging from mass hallucination, triggered by air pressure changes, to some kind of unknown atmospheric optical effect. Skeptics dismissed the whole thing as a hoax, claiming the passengers had coordinated their stories. But the people who had been on that flight knew better. They had seen it. All of them, from different seats, different angles, all describing the same impossible landscape. Marcus Webb never flew again. He retired 2 months later, unable to trust his instruments the way a pilot must. Rachel Chen requested a transfer to ground operations. Many of the passengers reported trouble sleeping, dreams of flying over phantom lands that should not exist. Sarah found herself constantly checking that the world around her was real, that the ground beneath her feet would not suddenly vanish. David Kumar deleted all the photos he had taken from the plane window, unable to look at them without feeling a deep sense of unease. Investigations continued for over a year. Aviation authorities from 3 countries collaborated, reviewing every second of the flight data, interviewing everyone involved multiple times, consulting with physicists and meteorologists and psychologists. Their final report, released to minimal fanfare, concluded that an unknown phenomenon had occurred, likely environmental in nature, that created a visual anomaly observed by all persons aboard the aircraft. The report acknowledged that no technical fault was found, and that all crew members had acted appropriately. It was the kind of bureaucratic language that said everything and nothing at the same time. But the report did not answer the real questions that haunted everyone who had been on Flight 743. What was that land they had seen? Why did it appear so detailed, so real, so complete? Why were there buildings and roads but no people? Was it a glimpse into some parallel version of Earth, a place that exists alongside our reality but normally remains hidden? Or was it something stranger still, a projection from the collective unconscious of everyone on board, given form by forces we do not understand? And the most disturbing question of all, if reality could fracture like that once, could it happen again? Marcus Webb sometimes stands in his backyard and looks up at planes passing overhead. He wonders if the passengers on those flights have any idea how thin the fabric of reality might be, how easily the solid ground of certainty can dissolve into impossible visions. He thinks about those empty streets in that phantom town, the cars frozen in place, the swings hanging motionless in the playground. Somewhere, he believes, that place still exists. Not on any map, not in any country, but somewhere in between. A land that should not be witnessed by 238 people who will carry that secret knowledge for the rest of their lives. The passengers of Flight 743 formed a support group. They meet online once a month, the only people who truly understand what they experienced. They share their thoughts and fears, reassure each other that they are not crazy, that what they saw was real even if it makes no sense. Some have visited each other in person, forming friendships bonded by shared impossibility. They have learned to live with the uncertainty, with the knowledge that the universe contains mysteries deeper and stranger than most people ever imagine. Sarah tells her daughter, now 6 years old, that they once flew over a magic land that nobody else could find. She frames it as a special memory, a wonderful adventure, protecting her child from the darker implications. David Kumar wrote a book about the experience, changed enough details to avoid legal issues, published it as fiction. It sold moderately well. Reviewers called it imaginative, but he finds bitter irony in that. The elderly couple from first class passed away within months of each other, 2 years after the flight. Their children found a note among their belongings. It said simply, "We saw something beautiful and impossible. We are grateful to have seen it together." There have been other reports over the years, not many, and never with as many witnesses as Flight 743, but enough to suggest that whatever happened that day was not entirely unique. A cargo pilot flying over the Pacific claimed to see an island that does not appear on any chart. A private plane crossing the Atlantic reported flying through clouds that formed into impossible geometric patterns. Each incident was investigated, dismissed, filed away. The world moves on because it has to, because accepting that reality is not as solid as we believe would be too frightening for most people to handle. Marcus Webb died 5 years after that flight. Heart attack, sudden and unexpected. At his funeral, Rachel Chen gave a eulogy. She spoke about his skill as a pilot, his dedication to safety, his mentorship of younger crew members. But in the final moments, she spoke about Flight 743. She said that Marcus never stopped wondering about what they had seen, never stopped searching for answers. She said he believed, until the end, that there are places our instruments cannot measure, experiences our technology cannot explain, and that being open to mystery is not a weakness, but a kind of courage. the plane itself. The actual aircraft that carried those passengers over that impossible land is still in service. It flies routes all over the world. Different pilots, different crew, thousands of passengers who have no idea of its history. It performs perfectly every time, all systems nominal, no anomalies ever detected again. But sometimes, late at night, when the cabin is dark and most passengers are asleep, a flight attendant will look out a window and wonder. They will see nothing but clouds or stars, or the black void of night sky. But they will wonder. And that wondering, that acknowledgement that we do not have all the answers, that the universe is vaster and stranger than we can comprehend. That is what Flight 743 left behind. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.